I can't take The Rock in anything seriously anymore because I'm just like, you are The Rock.
Yeah.
My suspense of belief or whatever the fuck it is.
Suspense of disbelief.
Yeah.
Yes.
Is like, it's, like, can't even happen.
I honestly.
So when you watch English shows, when you watch people, you're like, oh, I don't know this actor. Even if I do, I'm like, I don't recognize their regular voice and this one, like, I don't know.
That's actually a very good observation, is that I think so much of it is, and it's the same reason why
And it's like in completely different settings. It doesn't look like every old fucking,
when you watch
backdrop.
a movie based even in like, the classic trope, at least in my life, I've said this a billion times, but when you watch like an older movie, like it could be like about the fucking like ancient Greeks, like they all have English accents. And it's like, well, the Greeks didn't have British accents, but it's like they do the accent because on some subconscious level, it separates you from just viewing them as like regular dudes. Like if you're watching 300 and fucking King Leonidas is just like, tonight, our arrows are going to blot out the sun, dude.
Yeah. Tonight, we dine in hell.
Yeah, you're just like...
It's like, what?
I feel like Bill said that last night at fucking Arby's. What? like when you hear it's like, Spartans, tonight we dine in hell, and you're like, oh shit, this is, I believe this now. This happened. And it's weird. There's certain things like that. Like even with like, I've been following this page on Instagram called History Colored, and it's not what you think. It's just black and white pictures colored. And it is kind of a mind fuck a little bit. Like the pictures are one thing. Like you see a picture from like, I actually shared a recent picture to my Instagram story of it was a picture taken in 1897 of this Hawaiian surfer. And it was obviously originally taken in black and white, and they retroactively colored it in to make it look like it was taken modern day. And it fucks with you. Because when you see it in black and white, there's something in your mind that says, oh, this is old. You don't see them as like you. You just see them as like, this is an older person in an older time, and they were just different, and blah, 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 blah. And then you see it in color, and it makes it look like the picture was taken yesterday, and you're like, wait, you said it was taken in 1897? And it's like the same beach. The dude is just sitting there in like a regular bathing suit, just like looking at the ocean, just looking like a cool dude now. And it just, so you're just like, what the fuck? Like it does fuck with you in that aspect. What's even weirder is it's one thing when people, because they even had this old, like one of the original pictures like taken in like the early 50s or 60s, was this couple had a camera and they took a selfie. Ooh. And they color and they, even in the black and white, it fucks with you because you're not used to seeing people from that era in that context. Whenever you see an older picture, it's like everybody is in the middle of the worst day of their life. All the time. It's just like you see a picture and it's just like 5 men with like handlebar mustaches like next to a mine that they just crawled out of for like 1 minute before they go back, and they're just like, and you could just tell that their lives were shit.
Yeah. Everyone just like looks pissed off in
off.
old photos.
Yeah. Then you see this picture from that same time period and it's like a young guy and girlfriend couple, whatever, and they just take a selfie and they're both like smiling like this, and you're like, holy shit. That kind of fucked with me a little bit. It's like you're not used to seeing people like that. The weirdest one was I saw a video that from 1902 of it was just a regular day at the beach. And if I had seen it in black and white, it still would have struck me. If you see it in black and white, your mind says, oh, this is old. So all the things you're about to see make sense because it's old. Like, oh, you're noticing that like girls are walking around little girls are walking around in full dresses playing in the sand. Full dresses.
Yeah.
Not bathing suits. And the boys are wearing like wrestling singlets in the ocean. And when you see it in black and white, you're like, oh, you 1902 people, totally different, whatever. Then they colored it in. And it was like, honest.
What is this in England?
What? Is this Wales?
Is this the Geordie Shore? That's their version of Jersey Shore.
The Geordie Shore. Right on. Dude, it was honestly like a horror movie. It was so weird to see in color just people walking around on the beach in like dresses and like doing the same things that we would be doing. Like the kids are building sandcastles, moms are sitting there like yapping, and like the boys are like fucking jumping in the waves, but they're in this like weird garb, and it looks like a scene from that like M. Night Shyamalan movie, like The Village, when you like see like the modern day but like juxtaposed with like old school things. It's just weird.
Yeah.
And so going back to the point about like the British accent, like so many of those things are learned barriers in our mind in terms of like, we really do, like when I think of the 50s, I can't help but think that everything was in black and white. I just cannot help but just when I picture Baltimore in 1953, Fells Point, my mind pictures it in black and white. Like all of a sudden one day there was just color in like 1968.
Well, that's like a phenomena for like dreams and shit too, with like older people who like grew up with only like black and white movies and television. They really only dreamed in black and white.
Yeah.
And then it wasn't until, you know, Technicolor and all that shit and movies and TV started being in color that when people started dreaming in color.
Yeah.
So there's like a weird like subconscious tie into that.
Yeah, I've
as
heard
well.
about that. People dreaming in black and white. Totally a thing. Do you think that people born in 1920 dream in silent movie?
Maybe.
like they're just like, and then there's like a little sign that says like, where are you going? You're
Yeah.
like, oh shit. Maybe. I don't know.
I think people's like theories with that is that like movies are one of the things in life that is almost like equivalent to like a dream. Just because it's not real, it's completely made up, and you're using things from real life to make the story and, you know, make it possible. And then, yeah, I don't know where the theory ends after that.
The theory ends with being like, like just like we're talking about with the British accents and seeing things differently. It's like so much of our suspension of like when you're in a dream, your suspension of disbelief is zero context. And I think that's kind of the main thing here. In order to, and this is, whoa. In order to make someone follow with you on a train of thought, you first have to tap into their suspension or their, what is the word? Like there's a term that's used for when you can kind of like put somebody in a neutral state where they just are ready to be just absorb information. Like you break down their reflexive barriers, because the mind naturally has defenses that it puts up when introduced to new and contradictory information. And this is something that I was, you know, this all ties in, but this is something I was watching a video on YouTube, believe it or not, of talking about TV hypnosis and how it's an actual documented phenomenon that more than documented, it's actually put into practice, some would say. That just when people are just sitting in a room in front of a screen, something about just that, like, I've always said this, if you were to take any person staring at their phone or looking at a TV and then just remove the phone or TV and just now you're just watching a person do this for an hour, or now you're just watching a person look at their hand for an hour, it's amazing that, like, if you were to actually take away the thing and just look at the mental state that you're in when you're consuming media, it's incredibly hypnotic. Hypnotic. It seems hypnotic. And so in a lot of ways, if you look at even the theory, so much of psychology is built around, what do they call it in psychology? A breaking point. In order to, and this is everything that you think about when you look at AA, when they talk about rehab, the first step is admitting you have a problem. The first step to anything, to introducing a new idea, is to break down the old idea. It's vital. Or bypass it. And how do you bypass it? Well, you put somebody in a neutral state. If you're watching a movie and people talk the way you're used to them talking, and you're seeing a scenery that you're used to seeing, just like when, like, we benefit because we didn't grow up in New York City, but I imagine, like, you know, most movies are filmed in fucking New York and LA, like that. Most movies, you know, obviously not all, but a vastly disproportionate amount are based in these two major cities. And so I always imagine, like, what if I grew up in New York and like every movie I saw was like me watching The Wire, where like I'm familiar with the area, I'm familiar with the accent, like I'm used to all this shit. Yeah, that street. You said it was that street. It's actually that street. Now I'm involved in the movie. I'm not. My suspension of disbelief has not been engaged because I'm too familiar with the territory. So think about it this way. Now you're watching a movie based about Alexander the fucking Great. Alexander the Great. Okay, give him an accent that I'm not familiar with. Give him the British accent. I'm not used to hearing the British accent on a day-to-day basis. All right, so now my mind is one step removed from reality. Now I'm hearing a bunch of British shit. And I'm like, okay, this is automatically not normal. And now it's in a land that I've never seen with a fucking, you know, geography that I'm unfamiliar with. And now all of a sudden my mind, all its defenses that are built around this whole thing of like, I see this, I'm familiar with this, and I'm still in my own Jimmy Selesky mind. Because everything that's happening to me is something I'm used to. And therefore, if you try to introduce a new idea, or if you try to tell me that this guy can suddenly fly, or there's a ghost over there, there's something in my mind that just goes, I mean, okay, fine, if that's what you want to tell me, there's a ghost over there. But like, I know there's not a ghost. But when you start talking British and shit, and you're doing all this stuff, I'm like, oh,
It's a British ghost over there.
British ghost over there. Do they have ghosts in Britain? I don't know. I think they might. I don't know. But it's like there's something about that concept of breaking down first everything that you thought you knew and bypassing it to then inject the new idea. And that's done with movies constantly. And not to get way too crazy about it, but if you take that concept to a larger scale and you look at how like every type of regime has risen in terms of like tyranny and things like that. If you look at the first step they always did, it was about breaking down the foundations of the society that already existed. It was about saying first, before we can introduce you to this new way of thinking, we first have to destroy all the things you think are good or that you think you know. In order to introduce this new way, we have to first put you in a suspension of disbelief. You have to first put you in a state of impressionability, right? So what do they do in the military? Why don't they take? I got in this debate with Lucas Mosca the other day. Not debate, but it's just talking about how Navy SEALs, they don't take anybody usually over 28 to go in. And I always say, a lot of people their knee-jerk reaction would be, oh, that's probably because of the physical thing. Right? It's probably because, you know, at that age, your body is no longer able to withstand the massive physical punishment that goes along with Hell Week and all the Navy SEAL training or whatever. Okay, fair. But also, look at the fucking NFL. Look at like professional sports. Like most people don't even hit like their stride in terms of like athletic performance. Like most athletes would be considered in the prime of their career in their late 20s to like very early 30s, I would say. In terms of like, you know, look at the difference between a freshman in college and a senior in college. Senior in college is about 22 years old. Then that senior in college goes to the NFL and gets lit the fuck up. He's a fucking rookie. Welcome to the NFL, bitch. You got about 3 years before you're fucking as big as an NFL quarterback, before you can run over a fucking Ray Lewis in the NFL. It's like, so okay, fine, you could make that argument, but at the same time, it's like I'm not gonna sit here and be like, oh no, it's absolutely a physical thing that like when you're 29 years old, your body is just too old now. It's like I'm pretty sure like the best fucking running back in the league sometimes is 29 years old. Like I don't get it. I think it more so has to do with the mental state, because part of going to the military is they take these impressionable. Sorry, I hate the fact that that's more than 3 syllables. Impressionable young men at 18, 19 years old. And what do?
Completely remove their sense of identity.
Boom.
Put them in a group, make them not think individually, think as a unit.
Yes.
And then also just follow your commander.
Boom.
Listen to authority.
They remove all sense of identity. And what is identity? Identity is you. Identity is everything you know, everything you remember. My only sense of what is me, who is Jimmy Selesky,
the Playboy haircut.
Is the Playboy.
It's the first thing to go in the military.
That's the first thing most people think when they, including me. If you really break it down, all you are, and obviously me, the way like Eric Glazer to me is different than Eric Glazer to you, because I see you from a different perspective. I'm not in your inner thoughts.
Yeah.
I don't know what's going on in your mind right now. I know what you look like might be going on right now, and that's my impression of you. So Eric Glazer to me is different than Eric Glazer to you. But identity is, who are you to you? What is you? Well, you are a series of all the thoughts you ever had and all the memories you have up to this point. And that's why when you're in a present moment, it makes sense, because there's some part of your mind that can go, okay, it makes sense that I'm at the studio right now because yesterday Jimmy texted me and said, yo, let's do the podcast tomorrow. And then I went to work, and then I drove here, and now I'm here, and now we're in the middle of a podcast, and boom, this makes sense. This adds up. I'm Eric Glazer. I'm here. This is happening. Boom. If this was a dream, we'd just literally be sitting here right in this moment, and you'd be sitting here being like, but you'd believe it, and you'd go along with it. Why? Because you're totally removed from context.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So you can believe all kinds of crazy shit in your dreams because you've removed context. You've removed any sense of anything that you think you know, and then boom, now all of a sudden you're just randomly driving down the road and getting in a car accident. And you're like,
but you're like, well, I guess I'm in my car.
Yeah.
And I just saw that accident happen, so I guess, that happened.
Yes, and that's what they do with movies. Opening scene, opening credits, your mind just goes, did that guy just say something in British? We're here, baby.
Am I in England now?
The Queen is a figurehead and a representation of British culture. It is a fundamental thing where she is a symbol of what Great Britain is. Like, it's easy to get lost and caught up in the mix of if you're too far removed from where you come from, you just become, again, this very meldable thing. You have no sense of identity. It's very easy, if you have no history or culture or any context, for somebody to tell you who you are and what you're doing and what's good and what's bad. So much in the same way that having a sense of identity in your personal life is a very good defense against being swept up into the wrong things and believing in the wrong ideologies and things like that, it's very important on a societal level for there to be certain representations of what you are. What is England and Scotland and fucking Wales and Northern Ireland, and like, where do you guys come from? It's kind of fucking crazy, whether you like it or not, that lineage has been, you could trace Queen Elizabeth's ancestry back to fucking Louis the fucking whatever and Charlemagne, and you look at like, where did the royal family start? Oh my god, the fucking 1100s. Like, it's insane that it has been going on that long. And when you look at the Queen now, what you're really doing is looking at your history. You are looking at, we might think that we're this new thing. England is not what England was 200 years ago, 300 years ago, 1,000 years ago. But it's like, you know what? We still have that connection to that. And as a country, that's important. And I almost envy that. I envy that Great Britain's celebrity culture is more centered around their own personal history and what makes them unified versus our celebrity culture, which is based around what? Who's like, it's almost enviable. It's so in that way, it's hard for me as an American to say, this is so stupid, why do you care? When in reality, a British person could be like, dude, you literally had an entire week talking about Adam Levine's DMs. And now you're shitting. Funny. It was funny.